everything you've been told that is missing and everything you've been told you can do to improve yourself is a lie.
Matthew Zoltan, creator of the Undo app, 30,000 clients, a master of meditation.
This is keeping people trapped in the experience of simply not being good enough. This is the number one con of society.
Meditation is critical for people. Why do you say that?
Everything comes from the body. And then you were taught to think, and you were taught what to think. And what I'm helping people break free of is this delusion.
There's a lot of emphasis on pain. Why do you do that?
So when you're in reaction to your pain, it creates a resistance to the pain. That becomes a magnification. What makes it worse? This is the key.
Well, give us some examples of big wins that people have had with this kind of meditation.
A lady who had endometriosis and she was bleeding all the time. Through the deeper meditation process, she started to reconnect with memories that she disconnected from. As she recovered the memories, the blood stopped, the bleeding problem ceased.
What message would you want people to get from listening to this podcast?
Get out of your own way. When you stop trying to do something, then something can happen of its own volition. Then the natural person you are born to be can.
I've been meditating every day now for 50 years. I started when I was 9 years old, and it's one of the most important daily rituals in my life, and I certainly wouldn't be without it. But there's something completely different and really powerful about what we're going to talk about here, and in particular, the extraordinary healing effects that it can quickly have on your body that's having on my body right now. Trauma is stored in your body, and this can help release it quickly, even as it's building up, which is a really important thing to do. Your body knows how to repair itself, and yet, if you do this, it'll really enhance the natural healing effects. Now, I've been using this method now for just a few weeks, and I'm so excited to be sharing it with you and to bring you the incredible man that created the method, that discovered the method. And he's created an app from that so that you can experience the effects of this whenever you want them as well. And he's written a book that I haven't read yet called Treating Physical and Mental Health as One. And that resonates so deeply with me because they're completely intertwined. And if you stick around to the end of the podcast, we'll take you through a quick guided meditation. Well, I won't, but Matthew will. So with that in mind, Matthew, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Adrian. That was a nice introduction. Good to hear. Okay. Really good to be here. Very
It's good to see you, man. I enjoyed our last chat.
Yes, it was nice. Yeah. Yes, we resonate nicely together.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So I have a question. As I said before, I've been meditating for 50 years, 5 decades, which is a very long time.
Yeah.
But you've got something completely different. So could you explain to the people listening what this meditation does that other forms of meditation don't do and how it's different, please?
Okay. I would describe two ways of meditating. One is an outside-in approach, and the other, which I'm helping people understand, is an inside-out approach. So interestingly, people think that meditation is all internal because you're sitting there quietly, and even if you're using a technique, you would consider that internal.
Mm-hmm.
But when I talk about outside in, I'm talking about further out than just your thoughts. I'm also talking about where did you get those thoughts or those techniques from? And you got them from outside of yourself. It's not something that came to you from within you. It's something that's came that you're putting upon yourself, which you've learned from someone else or somewhere else outside of you, or read a book, or you're applying something that requires your thoughts, your learned knowledge to apply to try and achieve a result according to that tradition, according to that knowledge, according to that belief system, if it goes that far. Now, when you're doing that, you're actually, in a way, fighting against whatever condition you are naturally in as a result of the life you've lived. So whatever condition you're in as a result of the life you lived is retained in the body as memory, sensations, pain, the condition you're in on a physical level, but also on an emotional level. This is all coming from what is held within the cells and within the tensions of the body.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how you already are. Now, if you start to apply something to changing how you are, which is an outside in approach, what you're literally doing is putting a wall of up against what you already are. So in other words, whatever conditions you have inside of you, that should naturally be allowed to, that we need to allow naturally to process. These conditions are being blocked by the use of any idea, any ideology, any intention actually to change or improve yourself at all, and then applying a technique to achieve an alternative state to the one you're in, or an improved state to the one you're in. You're really involved in something quite superficial in a sense, because it's adding another layer to what you already are. Now, as soon as you're thinking about yourself, that attitude about yourself or that approach is stopping yourself from being exactly the way you are by the fact that you're introducing something to change the way you feel or are. Okay, so that's an outside in approach, and it will lead to different meditation experiences. Even enlightenment is a thought-induced experience or a thought-induced state, because it's based on lots of good ways to be. And so you can think about those good ways to be and work through different meditation techniques to bring about certain experiences, but you are bringing about those experiences. You're conjuring them, if you like. Yeah. Some people would argue with that. I'm going to keep talking and explain something further, which is the alternative to that, which is this meditation, which is the inside out natural meditation of the body. So if I don't apply any idea to myself, I don't imply any intention, I don't try and make myself be any different to the way I am, then what is it I'm going to do? I'm simply going to sit physically still. And in sitting physically still, what will happen if I sit there still, physically still, nothing else? It's really simple. If I just sit physically still for long enough, I'm going to start feeling things activating in my own body automatically. So, in other words, whatever needs to be known to me, whatever needs to be processing in me will automatically start to process and start to come alive inside of me and express itself from the inside out. So, from the inside of me, what needs to happen can happen naturally if I can just get out of the way. And what I mean by get out of the way is if I'm not thinking about myself or trying through thinking or through mantras or through chanting, whatever technique I'm applying, I'm not intentionally doing anything to change the way I am, then the way I am will naturally start to change of its own volition, in its own way, in its own time. And so whatever's blocked in the body, all the memories of my life, all the things that are actually causing me to be the way I am as a person anyway, meaning the deeper cause behind any thought process is how I'm feeling. The deeper cause behind any confusion is the feeling. And feeling is a physical thing. When I'm talking about feeling, I'm talking about a physical thing. Yeah. You don't feel in the word or the thought. So you don't feel the word sadness. You only feel the sensation sadness. There's no feeling in the word sadness. It's empty. Yeah. But the sensation sadness, which is what the word sadness is talking about, is a feeling felt only in the body. Yeah. So this is a crucial thing to understand, is that people, when they're applying outside in techniques, they're not actually helping themselves feel, but they're disassociating from the feeling of their body and the feelings of their condition that is already there. Yeah. So as soon as you apply something, you are introducing something new, which shuts you off or disassociates you from the state you're actually in. And a lot of people want this because they think they want to be in a different state. But the problem being is that until you really know as a pure feeling how it is to be you, you then only know it through up until then, you only know it through your bias and interpretation, your mental views of how you're feeling.
Mhm.
So this bias interpretation of how you are changes how you are, and you end up only experiencing yourself after you've been changed by judgment or bias of your thinking. Once that judgment or bias of your thinking drops away and you only have the feeling or the felt sense of you in the body,
Mm.
then is the only time you can really be sure whether you like yourself as you are or you want to change yourself to something what you think is better.
Yes.
And
And
so,
basically what you're saying there, as an analogy might be, that in a car, you've got your gauges that tell you what's going on with the engine and stuff. And it's only when you actually experience what the engine's doing, you know. So if you're ignoring all the dials and stuff, you don't know actually how you feel at
Hmm.
any kind of real thing. That's the thing I noticed with this was that
yeah,
I was giving a cursory glance to how I was feeling, but when I actually really let myself go into it, it's a whole different experience.
yeah, a whole different experience.
Yeah.
That is the game changer, actually. And the thing is, it really is the game changer. It's so simple because it's not something we have to. And the body is sensation.
Mm.
Yeah, always feeling sensation, feeling sensation. But not being aware of it just means that we're disassociating from that, and we're not being fulfilled by that.
Mhm.
But we don't. When I say aware of it too, I don't mean that you have to then focus on being aware of it. If you just sit still long enough, what happens is all of the feeling that is inherent in you, that is authentic to you,
Mhm.
all of the condition you are already in just starts to come alive within you. And feeling is the way in which we activate the healing process, which is what you were saying before. You know, this accelerates that healing process that you've touched on from time to time over the years. And what's accelerating it is that you're deliberately feeling it. The thing that's greatly misunderstood and lacking in our society, which is crucial to our healing process and our sensitivity with one another, is to understand what it is to really feel.
Yeah.
And people actually don't. Very few people I've ever met were truly understanding and living in the feeling of themselves before I met them. There was a lot of thinking about their feelings,
Yep.
which eventuates in a mixture of thinking and feeling, which I would call emotion. And emotion is very different to feeling because emotion is mentally charged
Mhm.
or charged by the stories of life that we're not happy about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, whilst we're thinking those stories of life and they're mixed with feeling, that keeps the feeling one exaggerated beyond a comfortable state, but also it keeps it prolonged beyond its natural duration, causing harm to the body and mental harm. Yeah, it causes mental and physical illness actually in the long run. So feeling is without the thought process. Feeling is a physical sensation.
Mhm.
And that's all it is. It's just a physical sensation. And when you're just feeling in the body, you literally activate the healing process. A very simple example is if I've just had someone die in my life, someone close to me, and there will be grief and tension in my body. The tension of the loss and the grief and stress of that is held in my body, specifically in my lungs and chest, actually. Yeah. So not just anywhere in my body, but centralized more strongly in the lungs and chest and maybe the throat. So if I ignore that, I can ignore that feeling by thinking about, by complaining about what just happened, by talking to people about my friend who died, just to constantly distract myself from feeling the actual feeling of loss.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now, so there's the distraction of our thinking, or there's just going back to the physical sensation in the body. When I allow myself to come back to the sensation in the body, it's already there. I'm not creating that. It's actually there. And it comes over me. It comes out of me. It starts to process. Now, if I can feel that grief or feel that sadness, what will happen is it activates the processing of that grief or that sadness and that sense of loss just by feeling it.
Mm.
In feeling it, it eventually dissipates completely because there's no additional thoughts about it to keep the emotional state prolonged beyond a healthy duration.
Yeah, and
So-
at that point as well, if it's, I mean, this ties in with what I understand of German new medicine, that the disease is the unresolved trauma. So as you
Yes.
resolve the trauma, there's no reason for your body to make more of it's not the right word. I'm looking for a word here that if you leave it there, it's like you have something that's starting to rot and it needs to be dealt with.
Yes. Yeah. And also, if you leave it there, it continues to influence all of your behaviors. It influences every thought you have. So every thought leads to your worldview, your view of yourself, and the behaviors that come out of that, a distorted self view or distorted worldview.
Yeah.
And then we try and use techniques or mind control modalities or psychology or whatever it is, therapy, to try and change our thinking, to change our attitudes, when those attitudes are actually the result of the underlying unresolved distress held in our body from some event in our life. So when you understand that, you realize there's not really any need to try and change the way you're thinking. And that's a bit too, it's unnecessary and it's a bit too superficial, because you can change it today. But if you haven't resolved the driving force of how you feel as a human being, how it feels to be you, then tomorrow you're going to have to change that thinking again, because it's going to keep being there. Whereas with this approach, with the undo approach, or the approach that I've understood through my life of meditation, and just through working as a healer as well, is that.
Well, let me ask you a question, actually. That's quite relevant to there. So how long have you been working with clients? And for those listening, do know I said client here, because a customer is someone you do something or you sell something to, whereas a client is somebody who's in your care. And I know, Matthew, you care passionately and deeply about your clients.
For sure.
And how many of you helped before you decided it wasn't worth counting anymore because there's so many of them?
Well, for the purpose of taxation purposes in Australia, I counted 30,000 people in a 20-year period.
Wow. Okay.
And I've been doing this now for 45 years or something. I know I've been meditating for 45 years, but I think I started my clinic when I was 28.
Yes.
And I'm now 63. So whatever that is, I think that's 35 years. There you go. So yeah, and that's been a combination of, that's been a combination of working with people's bodies as a masseur and osteopath, but with my own unique approach that connected the condition that they were going through physically with what was underlying at a psychological or trauma level.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. And one of the things you do throughout, I've noticed, is and certainly it came up from what I've scanned of the book so far, I'm going to have a proper read of it, is that you place a lot of emphasis on pain.
Yes.
And why feeling pain and understanding pain. Why do you do that?
Okay.
And by the way, the reason I ask that question is because we're biologically wired to avoid pain and move towards pleasure. But in order to fix the problem, you need to look at the pain to get the answer. But there's one thing that I want to give you a quick thing of, which is really interesting. You've heard of a guy called Jordan Peterson, who's an amazing guy. And he's a psychologist, I think, or a psychotherapist.
Okay.
And he gives the analogy of the dragon, because metaphorically, a dragon is big and scary. It's you know, it's a flying creature. It's got big teeth. It spits fire. It's a reptile. It's all the things that we associate with not being nice. But we also associate it in mythology to guarding treasure.
Yeah.
And so in many ways, what he says is thinking about the dragon, the things that you most want to have, which is relief from the problem, are actually hidden in the place you least want to go because there's pain there.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So it's a little like the problem with the human being is, I think, a major problem, in fact, with our species is that we have learnt something that other animals haven't learnt, and we learnt it at a very early age. We were taught it. We weren't born with it. We were born sensing and feeling, but we weren't born thinking.
No.
We were taught to think. So you think about it, when a child feels pain before, especially babies, they cry a lot. Yeah, or not all babies, but often babies do cry. If you hurt them, they'll cry.
Some grown-ups do as well.
Some grown-ups too, yeah, if they're lucky. Yeah. So when they need to. So there's no choice. When you feel pain, there's no, and you don't have a way to think about it, then you just have to feel it. When you feel hot and you don't have a way to avoid that heat, then you just have to feel it. When you feel cold and you don't have a way to avoid that cold, you just have to feel it. And incredibly, we as human beings have, through our thought processes, which we're taught at a very early age.
One second, Matthew. Your mic's gone really quiet.
Oh, okay. How's that?
Yeah, I've changed something on my side, so it must have been me. So sorry about that.
That's all right. Okay. So your question was about pain.
Yes.
And so we have this ability that other animals don't have because we learn to think at a very early age. And when you learn to think, you actually you learn to think about yourself. And to think about yourself seems like an okay thing to do. But actually, it creates a type of self-consciousness and an ability to disconnect from how you are physically. So you get so involved in thinking that you can disconnect from how you are physically and how you're feeling.
Yeah.
So it's something that other animals can't do. So they don't have the choice. Yeah, they have to feel what they feel. But there's a bit of a problem with this because once we start to think about pain, we are actually going to a thought reaction to pain, which before I was talking about emotion, even distress. We think about distress, and what happens? We make it worse. When we think about pain, we make it worse. But what makes it worse? This is the key. What actually makes it worse is the ability to disconnect from the pure feeling of it. So the pure feeling of it means I just have it as a sensation in my body. I don't have a complaint in my thinking about it. So what I found is that human beings have become quite disconnected from themselves as a feeling being. And that includes the capacity to feel pain. Now, when you say that it's everything we don't like, pain being everything we don't like, well, the other thing you said was biologically wired to avoid pain. Yeah. So biologically, we're wired to know pain because pain tells us when we're being hurt or something's harming us.
Yeah.
And so we get away from it. Yeah. So pain on the way in is something we don't like. Getting hurt is something we do our best to avoid. That's okay. That's intelligent and it's a biological function, as you mentioned.
Yep.
But the second part for that biological function is that once we are hurt, we accept the fact that we are. Yeah, because we have no choice. It's only intelligent to accept the fact that we are. But we don't actually have that choice. We imagine we have the choice to not accept the fact that we're hurt, and we learn to suppress and to avoid our feelings. Yeah. But in fact, as far as the body is more intelligent than this, the body knows that there is no way to reject a fact that once I've been hurt, I have that pain in me, whether I choose to have it or not, it's there. But the difference is that pain is not the pain that harms me. That pain is healing. So we go, once we're hurt, too late, we can't avoid it. Yeah. And we get hurt all the time. So once we're hurt, then any pain immediately after being hurt is actually part of the healing process. It's already the body already working towards recovery immediately. Yeah. It's already working towards recovery. So when we have the wrong relationship with pain, we are trying to avoid pain and end up not understanding it at all. So when people talk about, the reason I make pain such an important thing is because this is the part of ourselves that we avoid experiencing, feeling, and thinking about the most. Yeah. So if we have a part of ourselves that we avoid thinking about, feeling, and experiencing the most, then doesn't it make sense that will become the part of us that we understand the least?
Yes.
That makes sense. So that ends up being the part of us that we just don't understand.
That's right. And what Jordan Peterson said makes sense then, because the treasure you want is where you're not going to look for it.
Exactly. The
Yep.
treasure you want and your best friend is your pain.
Yeah.
But you don't have to, there's a difference between suffering your pain and feeling your pain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when you're in reaction to your pain, that thought reaction to a pain creates a resistance to the pain. And that resistance becomes a magnification of whatever pain you happen to have, whether it's physical or psychological pain, whether you have whatever way it is inside of you, you will magnify that pain when you think of it. Yeah. So, but if you feel that pain, what happens is you actually come into contact with the purity of that pain, with the pain as it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
So when you feel pain, you're going to the part of yourself, as you said just before the dragon, that you don't want to know about. But if you spent your whole life avoiding that, then that is actually the part that the human being is most ignorant to about themselves. Mm-hmm. So this is where I would actually go so far to say, for these people out there who are interested in enlightenment and want to become blissful, you're barking up the wrong tree. You're not going to find enlightenment and bliss. You're going to find enlightenment in the area of yourself that you are ignorant to. We all know what it's like to bliss out. It's easy to do that. Yeah. Well, most people know that they can do that. If they can't do it naturally, then they can take drugs to do it. It's not exactly a difficult thing to achieve. Yeah. But that's not the answer, and it never was, and it never will be. It's just an escape mechanism.
Yeah. Well, it's you searching for the feeling that you want, but you're not getting the feeling. You're just getting a kind of a thin veneer of it. You're not getting the real stuff.
You're not getting it. No, and you know that from 50 years of meditation.
This is, Matthew, this has been a complete game changer. There are elements of my existing meditation that I find very useful for focus and imagineering, but this is a whole different bodily experience. And, as soon as I came across that when we were talking to Amanda Vollmer, where you did that little meditation, I thought there's something to this.
Yeah.
And it was a whole different thing. So absolutely. Yeah. It's a different experience altogether.
It's great to hear that from someone, to have someone like you actually say that, who's not a novice, you've not only been meditating, but you've been looking into life and, for this 50 years, that time as well.
Yeah.
And so this is why I would say probably why, I shouldn't know. It's causal, maybe, but it's probably why you're able to get it so easily, because it's just that missing link, that something missing. And because from the outside-in approach, you overlook the obvious. You overlook what's already there, and you don't necessarily get the benefit of what's already there.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the pain, people are most ignorant to the parts of themselves they don't like, that they don't want to go near.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the area in which they're going to find the greatest enlightenment, the greatest understanding come back to them. Yeah. And everything people have misunderstood about themselves mostly everything is resulting from avoiding discomfort, suppressing discomfort, modifying discomfort, and manipulating themselves to not be uncomfortable. Yeah. So this is not very healthy. So I would say, if you feel any type of pain, I'm talking any level of pain. I've worked with people in all sorts of pain and tremendous trauma, the most extreme traumas that you could come across, and right the way through to helping people just deal with a relationship argument.
Well, that would be a good question. Obviously, because of client confidentiality, you can't give specifics away. But could you give me or give us some examples of some fairly big wins that people have had with this kind of meditation in terms of resolving their own trauma? Is there a way you can do that?
Yeah. Okay. Big ones. You want big ones. You want them to be. Let's do it then.
Well, I want the big ones first, and then the next question I'm going to ask you is, what are some more common applications? Because I've got a few ideas as well.
Okay, great.
So the big ones, please.
I would say the first one that sprung to mind was a lady that came to me probably when I was about 30. She came on a meditation retreat with me. And she came because she had endometriosis, and she was basically bleeding all the time.
Yeah.
And so I'm not using her name, so that's okay.
Yeah.
Now, it was, my advice to her was not to have an operation, but because I could see if she was willing to go through the healing process, it means that she's going to have to go through a lot of fear and a lot of pain and possibly unravel a lot of trauma in order to heal this very, very extreme condition. It had become an extreme condition. Yeah. So if it's an extreme condition, there's going to be an extreme trauma behind this condition for the body to become so damaged. And of course, I had little idea of how extreme it was going to, what extremities was going to show up from her, and she had none at all. And so as she meditated over a few years with me, she still bled for a number of years. And I also saw her for counselling and for massage and so on. And she had a lot of other traumas. But eventually, through the deeper meditation process, she started to reconnect with memories that she disconnected from. And that memories were of childhood sexual abuse and sexual abuse all the way into her recent marriage. And the recent marriage had finished only because the man died. And it was right up to that point that she had been a victim of sexual abuse. So she had no defense against it at all. She had a split personality, which she would go into under any threat of harm. And in that split personality, she was a defenseless child and unable to do anything about it. And then when the abuse was over, she would come out of that personality, which was completely unknown to her day-to-day personality. So living in two different personalities, this sounds extreme, but it's actually a lot more common than people realise. Having worked with it all my life. Now, this recovery of the abuse, and you can see how the endometriosis, the whole area of the womb and so forth, is absolutely abused, absolutely full of terror, absolutely full of shock and pain and destruction. And so it was just self-destructing as a result of, really screaming out to get her attention. So her suppressed memory of the body was enacting out as that part of the body in that condition. And as she healed, recovered from those memories, I should say, firstly recovered the memories, the blood stopped. She stopped. The bleeding problem ceased because, we've got that connection. Once the connection with the problem that's been suppressed was established, which happened for her naturally through her meditation and through her healing process, then this bleeding stopped, and then eventually the whole problem was fine. And I still know that lady today. She still actually attends meditation retreats with me 30 years later, simply because she's become an extraordinary person, having had such an extraordinary experience of healing something which took so much courage and so much determination and so much will to stay with the process, very difficult process. So that lady has become a close friend of mine actually over the years, and she's about our age actually. Yeah. So that's one example. That's not actually quite normal. And that was a situation that took a lot longer. And it could be a smaller situation. I mean, people would come to me with back problems and neck problems all the time. Ever since I opened my clinic back when I was about 28. And the traumas were either seriously traumatic or simply just some pain that they've overlooked and suppressed, some painful experience in their life that they've gone through where they overlooked something or and suppressed it. And that suppression had continued to manifest itself in a person's behaviours. And so in this way, you want another example. So I'm thinking of a girl now who came to me with, let's go for a very common one. A woman would come to me with a shoulder pain, deltoid pain. And so the deltoid, they're commonly called frozen shoulder. And so I had a lot of success, or had success with resolving these because I brought it back to this overreaching. It was on the left, on the right-hand side. And it's very common for women to come to me with right-hand side shoulder problems. Yeah, because women have the burden of their men. And so the right side is to do with the man. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so they often have a lot more, especially women in relationships, often have a lot more burden from the man they're in a relationship with, primarily from their own reaction to it, but also from the failure to get to reach out, to try. They're reaching out, trying to, in fact, overreaching their own needs to try and fulfill the needs of their man. And so they're taking on a burden, which is his problem, not their problem, taking on a burden that shouldn't really be on their shoulder. It should simply be on his shoulder. They've got enough problems of their own, if you like. Mm. And so this woman would come to me and helping her understand that, working the problem, of course, and fixing the damage that was done through massage and whatever it took, but only through helping the person understand their own behaviour and helping them get to the point where they actually not only understood enough to change their behaviour, but also resolve the driving force of their own issues, their own distress, their own pain that was making them continue down that track. This was the whole package together. So you've got your physical condition, you've got the underlying suppression of pain from your own life or your own inhibitions, and then you've got the way in which they act out in your life through your thoughts and your actions and your interactions with other people. So I always worked on, from that early age, from 30 odd, I always worked on that whole package. So got really good results as a result of bringing those three elements together. And it worked very, very well because they were taking responsibility for their actions. So getting in touch with the actual pain driving those actions and causing the physical condition. Again, here we're combining the mental and the physical, and always found that you could not separate the two. I always found it was impossible to separate the two. Would you like some more specific examples at this point?
Well, I'd like some more common ones. What more common uses?
Okay.
Well, no, the reason I'm asking that, I'll give you one if you want to get you started, because for me, we're getting exposed to traumatic events constantly all day long, big ones, small ones, in different ones, in relationships, in discussions. For me, it's got an amazing place because several times during the course of the day now, if I have something that I think is a bit awkward, I will stop then and figure out where it sits and then resolve it straight away. Then it doesn't grow into something.
Yes. All right, good. So I'd say that, a common problem is relationship conflicts. Yeah, as you just brought up, relationship conflicts is a very common problem.
And by the way, they can be with yourself.
Pardon?
They can be relationship problems with yourself.
Exactly. How you relate to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. How you treat yourself.
Yeah.
How you think about yourself.
Yeah, which is all influenced by the trauma from previous stuff as well. This is like it's like an onion peeling all the layers off all the time.
Yes. But fortunately, we can get to the root of the cause. Yeah, we can actually get to the root of the problem, so we don't just have to take one layer and another layer. And it doesn't have. We can actually go straight to the cause, and that where we'll find that is, as you're saying, is you're doing now. You're bringing your attention or allowing yourself to feel where you're feeling in your body.
Yes.
Where the disturbance is for you in your body. And most people will have trouble at first feeling the disturbance. They want to be resolved of that disturbance. Mm-hmm. Now, if in a relationship problem where you are disturbing me or I am disturbing you, then naturally I think you're the problem. You think I'm the problem. Now, when people realise that they are only really being disturbed in the area of themselves that they are themselves at odds with. So the actual reaction that they're having is being triggered by the other person's behaviour. And the other person's behaviour, even if the other person's behaviour is not that great, it's still only going to be insurmountable for you and overwhelming and really distressful for you if you yourself have your own reaction in the mix. So your own reaction is what people like to term as the subconscious mind. And I don't agree that I haven't found any place for a mind so far in my entire life. But once I've understood that the thought process actually originates as a sensation in the body. So what's going to happen is you're going to trigger a feeling inside of me, which is going to trigger the thoughts that come with that feeling, the attitudes that come with that feeling, and I'm going to express that or think that and upset myself through those thoughts. But the reaction is being triggered by something outside of me, meaning my partner. And so my partner is behaving in such a way that is triggering, let's say it's triggering insecurity. Yeah. Oh, last time we went out to a party, you were flirting with that woman, and and I feel all insecure. You're flirting with that man, and I feel all insecure. And he's like, what's the matter with you? And he's not very sensitive to me, though I'm left with that feeling of insecurity, and I'm starting to imagine things because of a past experience with a previous lover or a previous relationship where that actually did indeed happen. Yeah. And so how do I get over it? Let's say a scenario where this person isn't doing anything wrong. They're not actually playing up on me. They're actually quite honourable and quite honest and caring of me. But being in a relationship, getting close to someone second time round, or the next time round, I'm actually being vulnerable. And what's being vulnerable is parts of me that have been hurt before are now coming back into a relationship, going to be aggravated by simply being in a relationship. Yeah. So I become insecure because I'm starting to care about this person. I don't want them to, I want them for myself. I don't want to share them with anybody else. And so this is natural, fair enough. But the other person can easily stir me up because I've got these past unresolved issues. So what do we do there? We're living with a feeling of distrust, but we have facts that show us, facts meaning the other person and their behaviours and what they're saying to us. We have the facts that don't fit with our feelings. And this is a common and very easy thing to use. Look at the facts of your life. Do they measure up with the way in which you're feeling, or are your feelings in fact exaggerations and perhaps overreactions? Yeah. And so once you notice you're having an overreaction, you can be pretty sure that this is something that you have to resolve from your past experiences that are intruding on your life today. So that can be in a relationship, or we all have all different types of relationships. So we have conflict with people because of the disturbance within ourselves. Yeah. Knowing that that disturbance is mine, I can realize that it's not yours. You're not causing me to be this way. I am this way, and you're making me aware that I am this way. You're bringing it to life within me.
In that way, it's a gift.
And in that way, you're helping. But it's a gift. It's a gift in a way. But you're helping me to get in touch with things in myself that this relationship with you, if I didn't have it, I wouldn't necessarily get in touch with.
Yes.
So as I said before, this is what people call the unconscious. But I can bring that unconscious back to simply the tensions and the sensations in your body. Meaning that in a sensation in your body, you hold, that is the holding of a memory. Yeah. That memory is held not as people would think. People often think that the subconscious is like all the thought processes, like if we could plug into it, we'd hear ourselves thinking away underneath our conscious thinking. But thought is not active when it is simply a sensation in the body, but the information is active. The information is felt. So the felt sense, if you like, the code of the information, the source of the information is there. When it's activated, it becomes our thinking. Yeah, it becomes a mental expression. So from the unconscious to the conscious is simply bringing what we feel into what we think. Yeah, as simple as that. So that's all I'm suggesting at this point anyway. There might be other interactions that we have on that. So when people are stirred, they're stirred because they're not really feeling what's going on in their body, and they're quite oblivious to their feelings, not used to feeling disturbing feelings, and we're not wanting to. And this is a big problem. Our fear of pain, our fear of disturbance, it is what causes us to not be willing or able to deal with our own personal problems, even though they're becoming a problem in our relationship or in our relationships in the world, or in our success in the world in general. And these feelings inside of us, if we don't feel them, we will find ourselves reacting to the world out of them and imagining that we're suffering the world. And that's a terrible thing, because when we imagine we're suffering the world, or we're suffering because of someone else's behavior, we have no control over it. So we're totally victimized by it. We're totally disempowered. Yeah. But when I realize, hang on, I'm suffering my own unresolved past. I'm suffering my own unresolved past present in me now as a feeling. That is something in me. Once I know how to deal with that, then I have my power. Yeah. So the world is not really affecting me as much as I think it is. Maybe affecting you a little bit, but not in the way
you're affecting yourself in response to the world.
Yes. You're affecting yourself in reaction to the world.
That's right, yeah.
And so the world is helping you feel it. And in that reaction, if you can just feel that reaction, no matter how justified it seems to get upset with the person, first feel the reaction as a sensation in your own body and give that time to dissipate, to heal in itself. Then, as you mentioned before, you said with your meditation the other day, you got in touch with that feeling in you. And also what unraveled from that was a cognitive understanding and sounds and everything, the whole memory that was blocked in that feeling in your body came back to you just by you deliberately or willingly feeling it as it was. So this is a real, understanding our reactions and coming back to our reactions is something that is very poorly understood, and the value of which has been very undervalued. If people understand nothing else but this, which is actually, I think, the chapter 2 in our app, in our Undo app, is helping people understand reaction and projection, and how to manage that, how to understand life from that perspective. And what's going to happen is every time I am triggered, every time I'm reacted, caused to react by anything outside of me, then by coming back to the reaction inside of me, I'm allowing the unconscious to become conscious. I'm allowing what is unknown to me about myself to become known to me. So this is making me whole. I
was going to say, what you're also doing is you're not disconnecting, the bits up here that you think with from the rest of it that you feel with. You're working as a whole unit.
Yes. And this is incredibly important.
Yes.
This is where overthinking in psychology, in spirituality, in religion, the overthinking of life in general, but most importantly, the overthinking and over-analyzing and dissecting of ourselves as a human being has eventuated in super consciousness, consciousness, subconscious, unconscious, and it's all the same thing. It's just, it's really, when it comes back to it, we are thinking and feeling at the same time. But once feeling and thinking is together and operating as a whole unit, then thinking is automatically not a problem. It's not a problem because the sensations that you are causing yourself through your thinking, when you're in touch with those, because you're feeling as well, you immediately know what you're doing to yourself because you feel it. If you're not feeling the effects of your own thinking, then you're oblivious to the effects you're having, to the damage you're doing to yourself. Then you'll just keep doing that damage. You'll keep thinking that way.
Yeah, and you'll also get ideas about what you're saying to others is damaging them because it's damaging you at the same time. You'll feel it.
You'll feel it. This is the extension of this, isn't it?
Yes.
This natural way of operating that you're bringing to us when we're operating as a whole being, we're a complete being. You don't care whether you want to call it material or physical, spiritual or physical. I don't care what we want to call it. The thing we're calling is the same thing. We can say I'm a material person or a spiritual person. To me, these terms are irrelevant and superficial because the person is the same thing.
Yeah, I'm going to summarize that as stay in your head, you're dead.
Yeah, you are. And you are already, in a sense, dead, or switched off. So when we can drop all of these concepts about ourselves, we find out that actually, as a living organism, this is something that you and I equally have access to the understanding. And for example, if I say to you, what is it like to feel like in your knee right now? Feel the sensation in your knee right now. You know exactly what I'm talking. You have access to that as your own lived experience. It's not something that is arguable. Yeah. And not only for you, but for every single listener right now, I was like, feel your knee right now, and you know, and I know what we're talking about. There's something that is nothing mystical about that.
Yeah.
And yet, in the feeling of your knee, particularly if you have problems in your knee, you'll probably find that there is all about you, which you are not aware of at this point, something that you've lost contact with, you're oblivious to, or just something in your own behavior or something in deeper in your own condition is actually causing trouble in that knee. And this is where you start to realize this whole mind-body connection is really about, this is all one thing. We can't separate these things and understand them in isolation and have any clarity in that understanding. We can only understand these activities of the living organism that we are in relationship with, thought in relationship with feeling, conscious in relationship with unconscious. And what happens when we bring that in, conscious in relationship with conscious, but that is the known in relationship with unknown, and we realize that in fact this is a trick. Because the trick is, I'm thinking that just because I don't have the thoughts that are telling me all about myself, I think there's aspects of myself that are unknown to me. But in fact, they are known to me. They're just known to me in a different way. They're known to me in how I feel. Yeah. So we can suppress our thinking or distract from our thinking. So I don't want to ever remember that again and block that memory. But we only block it so far as our thinking and description is concerned.
That's right. Yep.
We don't succeed in blocking the pain.
Yeah. And by the way, what my experience has been is that when you do eventually get to that place where it's stored and you have a look at it, it resolves very quickly if you let it.
Very
but that may be because for me, because I've been meditating for so long, I don't know, but it will resolve.
It'll resolve. It can resolve very quickly. Depending on the complexity of it. Like if you go into a pain in your body, as we mentioned before about that lady with endometriosis, she had a history of literally tens of thousands of multiple traumas, serious traumas. So, that's what happens with children if they're abused by adults. It doesn't happen once, it happens, on a regular occasion. So they end up with a body chock-a-block full of trauma. No wonder they start bleeding and falling apart, because there's a lot of distress in there.
But
so
this also, if I just interject there as well, it's making me think of something that, and I've said this for such a long time to people, is that when you get a health warning, it's a very subtle thing in the early stages, almost like a caress of a breeze passing. You don't really notice it because you're so busy. But if you pay attention to it in the early days, it's much easier to resolve than it is when it eventually knocks at the door and punches you right in the chin and says, I need your attention.
Oh, yeah. And this is what I'm helping people get back to through the app, is to come back to start placing more importance on physical sensation than they are currently placing on thinking. So currently people place so much importance on their thinking that they don't even realize, actually I'll go too fast there. They're placing so much importance on thinking that their thinking is louder than their physical sensations.
Yeah.
So feeling becomes unknown to them and thinking is all they know. Yeah. And what will happen through the app and through this body-based approach to meditation is we turn that upside down, so that actually it gets to a point where the sensation, the physical sensation of you as a live creature is much louder than the thinking. So this also helps with the thinking becoming less and less a problem, less and less important, because you become used to paying more attention, giving more importance to any sensation, like you just said. Even the most subtle sensation that you feel somewhere in your body is a health warning, or a life warning, or a relationship warning, or your body is the sensitivity of your life. That sensitivity is a physical thing. It's nothing, there's nothing more than that. It is the sensitivity of life, of the organism that we are. And that sensitivity is actually in reception to many things going on in our life that we never have to worry about, because we know them at a subliminal level, if you like. The body knows. If we know them in the way the body knows it, we don't have to think about these things. But when we know them because we can feel them, and we actually are not numbed out to that feeling, then that feeling can process. And that means that many of the things are going on, like you have something that happens to you during the day, and you're feeling that disturbance, and you know it's connected to what happened because you're living as a more whole person.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel that, oh yeah, that's really disturbing me. I'm not just going to ignore that disturbance. I'm going to let that disturbance be there and just get on with my day, but I'm still going to know that disturbance because I can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And whilst I'm feeling that disturbance, that sensation is dissipating. And it dissipates and eventually completely dissolves from my system, if it's a small thing. So in this way, we are healing the live organism that we are is constantly healing itself on a day-by-day basis. We are constantly healing ourselves. And I actually find that only because, through all the people I've worked with and through my own life experience, that only because of our ability to disconnect into an imaginary state called thinking, then numb out into thinking, because thinking is a dead thing, so it doesn't have any real feeling. So because I can disconnect from the feeling, sensory life of me into an imagined story about them, only because of that disconnection do we end up with a lack of sensitivity to ourselves, a lack of sensitivity to one another, and therefore an ability to think about ourselves in a way that harms us without being concerned about that harm because we can't even feel it, and a lack of sensitivity to the effect we have on someone else when we're in our behaviour, and we can't feel that, so we don't care. And then in that, we feel disconnected from ourselves, therefore disconnected from the other person. Whereas once that sensitivity is there, I'm not only I'm sensitive to myself, therefore what's included in that sensitivity to myself is sensitivity to you and the effect I have on you. And I start to see on this very tangible way how connected we are. How, in fact, I can't do you harm without feeling the distress of that harm in my own body. Yeah. And this is a very practical, not a mystical, but a very real connection that we have, that we are totally affected by one another. And so my behavior, if I'm insensitive to myself and doing things to myself that are harmful, okay, I will be able to do that because I'm insensitive. Now, then I go off and create, human species have gone off and create morals and religions and belief systems to try and compensate for this loss of sensitivity, telling us how we should behave so we don't hurt one another. But it doesn't even work, because we only end up applying that to ourselves from the outside in. It doesn't work because deep down we still couldn't give a shit because we're completely numbed out and desensitized. Only when we feel the pain ourselves. I know you know this, but I'm saying this partly for the audience as well.
Absolutely, you should,
Because only because you know this from your own sense, because you're a sensitive man yourself, and you've discovered this for yourself. But that's actually quite rare, as I think you know. And obviously it's rare because look at the way people operate in life. No one is realizing that, doing business or whatever it is you're doing, you need to take care of the other person as much as you take care of yourself, because they are, from your point of view, an extension of yourself, and you, from their point of view, you are an extension of them. Yes. In other words, we can't escape each other. We can't escape each other's pain, and we can't escape each other's condition. And that's why we are living in such a terrible, world state, because of this disconnection from ourselves as a living organism, and therefore our inability to be sensitive in a natural way, not some trumped up, virtuous. So, not I'm a virtuous person. I'm going to practice these virtues. Why? I'm going to practice compassion.
Yeah.
Well, only reason you have to practice compassion is because you're not compassionate. Yeah. So naturally we're compassionate, because naturally what stops us from harming ourselves and the other person is the natural sensitivity that has been drowned out by overthinking. And so the app is helping people turn this whole meditation process completely on its head. It's not a thought-based process.
Well, let me stop you that right there. Yeah, I've got one question I want to ask, and I want to come onto the app, if that's all right with you. All right. All right.
Perfect.
You're going to love this question. Ready? You'll like this question. I know you will. So you told me that this is something you discovered within yourself. Can you take me back to the moment of that realization and what led up to it?
Okay, I certainly can. It's a bit of a story. Is that okay?
Please.
Okay.
I want as many stories as we can get, Matthew, because I'm
You
going
want
to
a
use them all.
story? Well, this is the story of how I unintentionally discovered the mind-body connection. And it happened in my 20s, which is in the early 80s, late 70s and 80s, when I decided to take on the life at the age of 18. I decided to take on the life of a yogi monk. And when I did this, it was interesting, because I want everybody to understand is that up until the age of 18, I had no connection with anything religious, with anything spiritual. I had no concept of soul, God, spirit, even a bit mind, but mainly no concept of spirit, soul, or God. Because I wasn't in that environment. I didn't have those sorts of things around me in my world. I was a shearer of sheep as a teenager. So I was and a horse breaker. That was my job. And so I used to break in wild horses in the outback of Australia, and I used to shear sheep in the outback of Australia. And so this was something that made me incredibly physical. Yeah. But when I say incredibly physical, I will also add into that, it made me incredibly sensitive. Yeah, often people don't equate the two. It made me a highly sensitive person, and I actually took up massage as a hobby with my girlfriend at the time, and when I was 17. And the massage, as soon as I started doing massage, I was also doing yoga, as exercise yoga. And these were the things that started to give me a sense of there's more going on in my system at a very, very sensitive level that I want to understand more about. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go and learn to meditate. Up to that point, I didn't have a name for anything, but I had the experience of everything that I was going on without actually having dissected it or named it. So I didn't actually know that I already was operating as a fairly complete person, just naturally. Yeah. I wouldn't say I didn't have any problems. I had some problems, but nothing big. I hadn't been traumatized as a child. I had a very nice existence, actually. So then I became a monk. And on becoming a monk, I went to learn to meditate. The reason I went to learn to meditate was to look deeper into this. And I had the idea that if I'm going to be successful at life, the first thing I need to really understand is myself. So this was my idea when I was about 18. And probably the worst idea I ever had, in a way, even though it's true, but it still led me into taking up life as a monk. And the first thing that they introduced me to was the concept of a soul. Yeah, a soul. I remember going on this course, and they said, "You are a soul. You are not the body." And I'm going, really? Yeah. So this is the first introduction to disassociation that I ever had. And I practiced this soul consciousness meditation for 7 years. well, over a period of 7 years as a monk. Now, what happened is over the years of meditating, I was very, very much into it. I left my girlfriend and I went into it 100%. So I was living as a monk. I was celibate and doing all the good things that a monk, being a good little monk, and studying and practicing my meditation 8 to 12 hours a day. And,
Wow.
you know, I was really full on. Not all the time, not in that period did I manage to have 12 hours, but always about 8 hours. Yeah. So it depended on the situation. So this was something that I did intensely. And there was a point about 3 or 4 years in where I completely dropped the techniques because I was sick for so long that the techniques were literally giving me a headache because the belief system was that the seat of the soul was in between the pituitary and pineal gland in the brain. And so we worked a lot on this energy center, what people call an energy center chakra, because it's a yogic tradition. So you're into all that stuff. I don't go for that anymore, but that's another discussion. But right now, during that time, I was going through this period as a monk, meditating intensely. And it got to the point where I had to drop my techniques. And what happened when I dropped my techniques was I became much more connected to the sensations of my body, because the technique is, even if you're not using, don't know the words you're thinking, after using a technique 1,000 times, it's automatic attitudinal type thinking. It's a wordless type thinking that technique becomes, which you're probably aware of. And you just do it like on automatic pilot.
It's like driving home. You don't even remember the way or the drive, but you get home.
Yes, but you're still using thinking, but not complex words. Yeah, so you're still aware. Awareness is in a way silent thinking. Yeah, so you know what's going on. You're recognizing everything, but you're not talking to yourself about it. Yeah, so you're still thinking. It's just a very basic form of animal thinking. Yeah, so this is clear. So then I'm doing this, and I found that as I'd sit for many, many hours, I'd get pains in different parts of my body. And I'd stay with the pain, sit still with the pain, sit through the pain, so to speak. And as the pain released from my body, I would find, this is what started happening. I started to get, just as you mentioned the other day, that happened for you. As the pain released, I would find this memory would reoccur, and this whole very vivid memory would come back.
It's like you step back into it in that moment.
Yes, it's like you regress, but you're not regressing. It's actually coming right there, and in that moment, this memory, which has been released by the dissolution of the pain that you're holding, or the tension that you're holding, would come back to me, and it would be significant in some level. I'd feel some relief from seeing it in that way, and feel the pain dissolve, and the recovery from the effect on me would complete itself, and that particular tension wouldn't be there in the body. Yeah. And so this went on, over and over again, day after day after day. And I never actually told anybody about it, because you're not supposed to be doing this when you're a monk. This is not part of our practice. This wasn't part of our practice.
So it's not part of the conditioning to get you to behave a specific way then?
Yes, it wasn't part of the mind control techniques of the monastic order. Yeah. And so it was outside of the boundaries of what we were supposed to be doing. Yeah. And they have a lot of boundaries. Yeah. And so you probably realized. And so this continued to happen. But then it went further and further and further. I'm still practicing, my monastic belief systems. Don't you? I'm hammering the hell out of myself with all these belief systems, and I'm trying to maintain this fabricated soul consciousness, which was a sort of it seemed to be this constant out of body state, which in fact, over the years, I realized it was all happening inside the body. I was still inside the body. I was just completely retracted from my sensitivity to my body to one point, which I call.
And there are times where that's a useful thing to do, to really focus on something, but it's not a place to live constantly.
No, it's a necessary thing. You need to be focused, but not like this. This is a disconnection from the totality of yourself into an idea of yourself. Yeah. So you reduce yourself from a living, breathing, intelligent being to nothing more than an idea.
That's
And
right.
the
And then you could be
sensations of that
controlled.
idea.
Well, you are being controlled.
Yes, you're totally. And this is exactly what happened next. My body, this is after about 3 or 4 years in, 4 years in, actually, I think it was. I get this date mixed up. Doesn't matter. At a certain point, my body started to react. So something, the suppression and the indoctrination of this constant life as a monk started to get a really strong reaction from my body, which I didn't have any understanding of course. It meant nothing to me. And it didn't happen during the day. The only thing that happened during the day was those memories reoccurring, coming out of my body. That's how I discovered the mind-body connection, the origin of it anyway. Yeah. And this helped me heal anything that happened. And I didn't realize the significance of it because it was just one of those things that happened in the day of a month, And then
This monk.
This month, yeah. It didn't happen for other people, actually. It was something unusual. And so this constant impression of you're a soul and all the belief systems that I was imposing on myself day in, day out. And also the belief in God was there as well. So there's all this going on. And then what happened is during the day, I was imposing these things on myself. And then at night, as I was drifting off to sleep, I hit a point like in between sleep and awake. And as soon as I hit that point, it must be a point where you're no longer mentally in control of yourself and your experience, where you enter a state of not being in control, and immediately my body would erupt. It's like it was just waiting there, like this monster inside of me was waiting to pounce, but the monster was a savior. Yeah, and my body would erupt, and it would all through the night. I very rarely sleep. I would just find myself going through various contortions in my body, not necessarily painful, although there was a lot of pain. A lot of them would call Kundalini awakening and all this sort of thing, but I didn't put it down to any of that stuff because it was sort of outside the boundaries of all that stuff. My body would go into, what we'd call classical yoga postures. I'd arch, I'd find my back would just arch, but I'm not doing this. It's doing itself. It would arch in such a strong arch that I'd be on my head and on my toes sort of thing, and then bang, straight back down the other way. And it would, hit the bed and come up again. And no pain, no injury, just this incredible, that's just one extreme. The other was more like, it's sort of like a wave motion would come at the end of it, where this natural wave flow of energy that goes through everybody's body when it's at peace, it would just return to this constant wave. And I just have this slight wave going on. Lots of things like this. Anyway, there'd be all this. What my point is, it was a physical transformation was happening. Yeah? And it was nothing to do with what I was doing. It was not caused, it was acausal. It was something that happened perhaps because I could only put it down to the extreme suppression of my natural person that was being imposed upon me from the tradition of the monk and the practices of those monastic meditations. Now, I come out the other end of it some couple of years later, and it was like everything that I was doing as a monk, and I wasn't your average monk in the sense that I was actually they have hierarchy in this situation. And I was so pretty high on the pecking order of the hierarchy of teaching and that sort of thing. I was a teacher in the organisation. And I started to challenge the organisation, built the hierarchy. It's going, hang on, this stuff isn't adding up anymore because I'm having these experiences, or not experiences, these things are happening. And I'm seeing things from a perspective outside of your perspective. And I'm seeing that it's not making sense. And I'd say the biggest thing that happened, that occurred to me in that process that's been quite relevant, is I recognized that during the meditations, because I meditated so much, I recognized that when my thinking completely dropped away, that every experience that was determined by that thinking also dissolved. And one of those experiences was the experience of the soul, or the experience of the mind. And I found that this ethereal type experience that we have of this mental thing that thinks, or this soul that exists, it could not be sustained without the thoughts that believe in it, without the belief about it. So without the idea itself, you couldn't conjure the experience of that idea. And so all I was left with was a peaceful, healthy, intelligent animal or organism, body, self. There was nothing there. There's no mind, there's no spirit, there's no soul, and there's no God for me. I'm talking just from my own experience. We used to have this experience, this meditation where we conjured the experience so powerfully that you do it. You get yourself into this extreme state of disconnect where you only experience yourself as a point of energy. So it's just contraction, and then according to the belief system, there was this soul and supreme soul consciousness going on, that we were connecting with this supreme soul, and this is supposedly, clearing you of your past karma and so forth, to purify. It's some religious nonsense, but I know it's a bit embarrassing saying that I was conned by this, but I was a young guy. Don't give me a break. So anyway, I got into that, but what happened was I could no longer maintain any division. I couldn't maintain a division between me and God. I couldn't maintain a division between me and the body. There was no division without thought. And this became very clear. Without the thought process, I couldn't maintain the division. All that remained was the sensory experience of me as a body, the live physical body of me. Anything else was not there. So for me, it started to become clear to me that there is this thing is only a fabrication of this meditation technique. It's nothing real at all, and that's never changed. Now that stayed with me ever since. So eventually, I got to the point where the first thing that got me in was, you are a soul and not a body, which was my first introduction to the whole monastic life. And I'm going, oh wow, that's cool. I'm a soul, I'm not a body, And so I've done all the meditation to develop that experience very, very, very strongly, which actually helped with celibacy, because you're no longer relating to one another as either male or female. You're relating to one another as points of energy, or as individual souls, if you like. So it's just a technique, but of suppression. So what happened in the end was I've come in one end going, this is my primary belief that I'm going to enter with. And that was the thing that dissolved. So the whole foundation for me of that whole belief system was resting on that you are a soul, not a body. And when that dissolved, then the whole foundation of that belief system, and in fact, every other belief system on the planet, dissolved for me, because I realized that all belief systems are based on something disconnected from the reality of ourselves as a body and the real world that I exist in sensorially. And so no belief system was confusing for me after that. It was very, very clear that these are all basically the same things dressed up in a different costume. Whether it's Christianity, whether it's Buddhism, whether it's yogic traditions, whether it's Hinduism, whatever it is, these are just the same themes: the theme of God or the theme of no God, the theme of soul, the theme of no soul, the theme of the stream of consciousness. It's just a modification on the same themes. Or psychiatry is the same. Psychiatry or psychology, their belief system is they believe in a mind. And to me, a mind is just another word for soul. So I know I'm throwing some pretty heavy stuff in here that's going to need unpacking, but I found the same theme is there. So to me, psychology and psychiatry is actually another religion. It's based on all the same principles as religion. And so there's something wrong with you, and you have to actually become a better person, and so on. So I came out the end of this, the story's nearly over. I came out the other end of this monastic period, really it wasn't due to the monastic period, it was due to that transformation that I just expressed a little bit about, that was actually entirely the result of what came out of me as a body. And it left me unable to even, I could not think the thoughts of the monk. So what happened was the monk, that was nothing more than a thought construct, a new personality that I put on top of whatever I had. It completely dissolved. And so I simply couldn't make sense of anything I was thinking about for those 7 years. I went back into the world. I got kicked out of the monastery, of the monastic world, and I went back into the real world. And all I really had was, I didn't know, now how am I going to do this? Because I really don't know anything. But what I had, it was right back to almost what I was, but in a different way, before I got on that trip. And that was, I'm just an organism, I'm just a body, and I'm out here, I'm interacting with people. But what was really cool for me was I had no real opinion. I found that everybody became acceptable to me, however they happened to be. Every situation became acceptable to me, however disgusting or violent or however it was. There was just a sense of understanding there is something more to this. This person's violence, there's something more to their violence. Yeah. And that was the beginning of my life as a healer. So I went from being a monk into being a healer. And that was the basis of my approach into the healing profession. Was I took my skills as a masseur, and I took my understanding of the body-mind connection, which was only in its infancy, and I went into the world, I opened a clinic and started working with people, and discovered the same thing all over again was actually operating in all the people I was working with. And that was, and all what was coming back to me from thousands and thousands of people when I worked on their bodies was just confirmation of the significance of what I discovered accidentally as a monk when I was meditating, and that this integrated person is what we're looking for. Yeah. So when people came to me with a problem, I would always include whatever was going on psychologically, whatever was going on physically, as one and the same thing. And let's resolve the whole of you, not just try and resolve a part.
Well,
so
that's presumably why you titled your book that.
Yeah. Yes, treating physical and mental health as one.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was that story, and we've got lots of other stories, but it was an enjoyable time in my life. It wasn't traumatic. It was a lot of fun, actually. Mm-hmm. It was just an incredible change in me that I've been like that ever since. Mm-hmm. And it made my life free of, very, very free in a way. I'm not saying I don't suffer, or I don't have pain, or I don't have illness, or I don't have a lot of that. Quite truthfully, I speak, the next 10 years, I think I never ever experienced any sort of illness after that. And I put that down to a very simple thing, which we started talking about. Mm-hmm. And I want to share it because it's something that everybody can use. So don't think you have to go through something I just talked about to get what I've got, because as you just shared also, Adrian, was the other day when you applied this unique approach to yourself, it was instant. Yeah, it didn't take you years. It's because I basically had to break some ground, and now I'm able to share it by sharing it in a very simple way, really.
Well, I'm going to come to that. I'm going to stop you right there because I've got one more question and I want to get onto that. Right?
Yeah. Cut me off. Good. You're not cutting me off. Good.
So, Matthew, what drives you? Why do you do this work? And what core question are you seeking the answer to with the work you do?
Really? Is that your question? Wow. That is a very good question. Oh, I like that question. Okay. That question gives me an opportunity to, the reason I like it is because it gives me an opportunity to show a lot more of what I am. And,
that's why I chose it.
It's very helpful. Would you mind asking me the question again so I can really just respond straight back?
Not a problem, yeah. Told you I had some good questions for you.
Yeah, but I'd like you to keep it in as a
Oh yeah,
repeat.
no, we're going to.
Yeah.
Yes, why we'll edit around some of these bits. But
Yeah.
Matthew, I'd like to know what drives you. Why do you do this work, and what core question are you seeking to answer with the work you do?
Okay. The first part of the question, why do I do this work? My nephew asked this. I trained my nephew when I was about 30 years old. And you triggered a memory. We were driving down the road. He said I was training him in the clinic, and he's a pretty young guy and a pretty wild young guy, a tough and very intelligent 18-year-old. And he's looking at me going, because I had a very busy clinic at the time. And he said, well, why do you do this? Why do you help people? You know, why do you do this with people? I don't think he used the word help. I just said, why do you do what you do? And the instant answer was, I do it because I can. And that was the only reason I was doing it. It's simply because it's what I can do. I hadn't really thought much of it past there. And I don't think it's changed a lot since. I think I do it because I can. Yeah. I also now see I do it because it's really necessary, or it's needed. But I don't do it as it's needed, and therefore I don't feel I do it as it's needed, and therefore I am enslaved to the suffering of the world. Yeah, I don't feel it that way. It just is it is a completely natural response of the organism that we are to respond to the needs of other people. Our own needs, of course, and I would have to say our own needs should probably be taken care of, if not first, at least at the same time as when we're taking care of other people's needs.
Well, to me, that's an ideal thing. If you're doing it both at the same time, it's a mutually beneficial situation, and it's ideal.
Yes, and I think it's essential because we have a plague of unhealed healers in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to criticize them. It's good on them. They got the guts to get in there and try and help people. But I've always been very careful of where am I? I need to be in a healthy. I need to be healthy in the area that I'm trying to help you. Otherwise, it's going to be problematic. Now, the other part of it says, why am I doing it? And the other part of the question, which was, what is it? What is
the core question?
The core question I'm trying to answer through my work.
Yeah.
Now, I really, really like this question because since that happened to me and I found myself operating as a sensory living organism, which means I'm operating in life as it happens, receptive to life as it happens, without the filter of preferences in the way. Yeah. Because I've realized that there's no point having preferences anyway. Life is just going to be what it is. And hopefully you're going to be able to deal with it. Yeah. So stop fighting life, which I had stopped fighting life at that point, because you are life. So if you're fighting life, in a way, you're fighting yourself.
Yep.
So you might as well just go with it. So once you're going, what happens is my ears, my eyes, my nose, my skin, my nervous system, every part of me is receiving information from life all the time. From the outside and from the inside, I'm full of the information of what my condition is. Yeah. And I'm receiving that information all the time as well. So as a sensory being, I've got the internal world and the external world are fully connected to me. Yeah, I'm not disconnected from anything in my world. Now, if I'm not disconnected from anything in my world, what happens there is I'm also experiencing and receiving the facts and the demands of my world every moment. What life is demanding of me is known to me. Yeah. And what I need to do in response is not necessarily known to me intellectually, but it's known to me as the response that it triggers from. Okay. So for me, life since that time has been very much answer, no questions. So we say, what is the question that I'm trying to answer? I don't really honestly have any questions. Yeah. I haven't honestly had any questions apart from day-to-day practical questions, which way to the shop. But life questions have not really been a problem, a plague for me. It's more, what is it that's being answered every day in my life? So for me, I only know my life today. But that's not just me, obviously, it's everyone. Yeah. But we only really have, we can only really know what is existing. And what exists now.
Yeah, well, it's not even this day, it's this moment.
At this moment, yes, you can go, exactly. So yeah, this day is a bit big, isn't it? It's incredibly detailed. You get right down to the basic point is, as I'm speaking to you now, I'm discovering what I have to say to you as I'm saying it. And that's why I'm going a bit slow, because I'm letting it come out of me. And I know it will come out of me. Just like when I started working on people as a masseur, I started talking to them, just taking a chance. I think this is going on in your life, because I'm sensing that from their body. And it was never wrong. I never got it wrong. It was always correct, and it always blew people away, because how do you know that? You don't know me. It doesn't blow. Well, if they're not used to it, it blows them away. Yeah. So it's because actually we do know the facts of life. We just don't want those facts to be what they are. We want them to be something different. And so then we ask questions, I think. Yeah. So for me, my work is not really answering any questions. Although I do find I'm always learning. Yeah. But not in a way of accumulating knowledge. And I don't feel like I'm needing to learn. What I mean by that is every day we are a different person. Yeah, I think you mentioned it in our first talk, about the body. It replaces itself. We are a different person every day.
Yeah.
And therefore, for me, rather than remember who Matthew was as a personality yesterday, I find that more difficult to do. I find it much more easy to just be Matthew today and discover what that's like. So consequently, I find life interesting. I don't get bored with myself, even if I'm repeating myself to other people. I don't know that, because to me, it feels like the first time. And the reason it feels like the first time is because I'm honestly coming from somewhere slightly different. Yeah, I can feel this, or it feels new to me. Yeah. And so so there's no real questions that I have in life ever since I realized that all the questions come from the answers we already have. That we wish we didn't have. Yeah. If we don't want the truth. We don't want the facts of life as they are. And so we invent other worlds and other lives and other time frames to exist in, and hope that we're going to end up there. Yeah, and I have no interest in those, because I only know this time right now, and this is a problem solving itself all the time. In a way.
Yeah.
But does that answer the question?
It answers it very nicely. Thank you. So the next question.
Okay.
Why, you mentioned that this style of meditation is critical for people. Why do you say that?
Wow. There are a lot of reasons, but the first thing that I'll start with is with the younger generation are not any more immune to influence than we were, and that we are,
I think they're exposed to more influence.
But they're exposed to a lot more. Yeah. A lot more. There's no limit, no comparison, is there? There's no time to themselves. They never get to think their own thoughts, and they think that the thoughts that they're thinking are their own when they're not.
They've been popped in there by the thinking device.
Yes, mostly the phones put them there.
Yep.
Or by design,
Yeah.
Influences of the world have put them there, much like religions in the past were the influences and the indoctrinators and the mind control technicians of the past.
It's the same thing, just a different coat.
Yeah. So it's still the same thing, the different coat. And this is why I'm not in favor of religion, and I'm not in favor of any teaching a person what to think. I'm not in favor of that at all, because the person needs to find out from themselves what they think. And until they negate the perceptions that they have of themselves already based on the incredible amount of influence that's in the world, to think about yourself a certain way and therefore to be a certain way, until they start to break that down, then they're just never going to know who and what they are. And they're never even going to know that they are already enslaved and that they already are completely under the power of the system. Yep, very much so. So, but to make that less scary, if it is scary, is that the system controls thinking, but it doesn't control the intelligence of the body. It can't. And this is something, when I spoke about the monk experience, I was entirely indoctrinated. And the only thing that got me out of there was the natural intelligence of the body, showing me that no matter how much we compound ideas on top of ideas on top of ideas, they can't actually defeat nature. Thank nature. They can't actually penetrate completely. Inside of us is the reality of what we were born to be. Our natural selves is there, but we have to access that. And I've created the Undo app to help people access this natural state that is unique to every human being. You were born from nature. You are part of the natural world. And then you were taught to think, and you were taught what to think. And then you were told, and when you were born complete, and you had something to express, but it was yet to come into expression. Very simple thing is, a child, as the body grows, so the child is able to express more of what it has within. You hit puberty and you express sexuality, which you didn't express before unless you were unfortunate and were abused. But your natural person comes out of you already complete. There's nothing you are unable to do that you need to do in life. You have all the intelligence. It's all the equipment is there. And as you grow into a woman or a man, so more happens. The body, everything comes from the body, from nature itself, nature being the body. At no point do we need thinking for anything other than a mechanical process, just a process of mechanical interactions. We should never use thinking to indoctrinate people. We should never use thinking to tell people who and what they are, if you see, or how to be. And we should not tell people what to think. We need to teach them how to think, for this world. But as soon as we start telling them what to think, and we also tell them the worst thing is that you're not good enough as you are, and you have to improve on yourself. And this is the way you're going to do it. And we continue to indoctrinate that into children from the moment we teach them to think and talk, right the way through to the time we are buried in our grave. We are constantly encouraged by religion and by science and by medicine and by
they're all
the
just
powers.
religions.
Pardon?
They're all just religions with different
All
names.
just the same thing, different types of science, different types of religion. We're constantly told, good point. And when you say all just religions, because they're all based on the same thing, that there's something better than you that you must become. The enlightened thing and all this garbage. It's absolutely harmful to the creature that you are, because it's constantly, no matter what you do to improve yourself, where are you coming from in that? And that's the thing that people overlook, and the younger generation and the older generation, people overlook that you can improve yourself physically. If you want to, get a different hairstyle and you think that looks better, or you want to grow bigger muscles or get a slimmer waist, okay, you can improve your health, you can do these things, but you cannot improve on the creature that you are. There's no way you can improve on it. And when you try to improve, it's complete, it's perfect as it is. But when you try to improve on yourself in any way, what people don't realize is that where they're coming from is the belief that they're inadequate as they are. And that sounds very minor, but it's the big thing. The belief in us that we are not good enough as we are. When we are trying to improve ourselves, that's what I'm suggesting is driving that improvement. And so if I'm trying to improve myself, whatever I do is compounding, because it's based on the belief that I'm not good enough. I'm acting on that belief. And the more I act out that belief of trying to improve myself, the more I'm compounding the belief that I'm just simply not good enough. And no matter how good I get, no matter how much money I have, no matter how many houses I have, no matter how beautiful I am, you see these beautiful young people who think I'm fat or ugly, and it's like you couldn't be any more physically perfect. But the belief that I'm not good enough, that there is always something to compare myself to another person, there's something to achieve, to attain. This is keeping people trapped in the experience, the lived experience that's inside of them of simply not being good enough. And to me, this is the number one con of religion and of society. The number one con, and that has crippled my species, our species. And what I'm hoping people break free of, and I'm getting this feedback, tremendous feedback from people using the app, is they're breaking free of this delusion that there is anything at all wrong with the way they are, that the way they are is that way for a very good reason. And if I can go into that pain, as we initially started talking about, if they can go into the depths of that pain, they will actually discover the significance of that pain, and it will develop them beyond where they have been harmed and affected before. And then they'll come to see that was the significance of this condition that I'm in. There's nothing bad about it. I should be like that because of the way I've been treated. And by approaching that pain or that condition in the right way, as a way to get into the depth of understanding and myself and resolving the effects life's had on me, by feeling what I come into contact with in that exploration, then they start to appreciate everything about themselves to be equally significant. And that means you can't condemn yourself for anything, your fat tummy, your wrinkly skin. You can't condemn yourself for any condition at all, because you see that the actual condition you're in is exactly the way you should be. You wouldn't be in that condition if you hadn't been through what you've been through. Now, you simply need to understand how to resolve the effects of that. Okay? And that brings us back to feeling into the pain, feeling into the sensations of your body, and see what your body has to say about it.
And your app takes people through a whole series of guided meditations along that particular journey for a whole different group of situations and effects they're trying to resolve, doesn't it?
It does. In fact, what I've done with the app is I've covered, it sounds interesting that I could do this, but having worked with tens of thousands of individual people, not just groups, but individuals, through their healing process and through, fun day-to-day problems. I also help people with business problems and whatever. It's all just life problems. That I've come to see that there are a few, over and over and over again, I came to see that there are a few basic things in life that people are confused about. And that is why they're struggling with life. And one of those things is the significance of illness, for example. Which, of course, puts a lot of people out of business if we can uncover that illusion, which we can. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying it's not your enemy, and it doesn't need to be the problem it really is. That those topics in that app is not only a course of information that they need for deep inquiry, for deep resolution and deep meditation. They need this understanding to get through the process of themselves, what they're going to come into contact with in the process of their own recovery from the influences of this world, of the current world, and the history. That all of those points I have found are each of the points that I found were commonly missing as common information needed for life, for navigating your life, whatever situation you find yourself in. And I've basically put that together in an app in it's very deep, but it's not complex. And it does go through a series of meditations as well for the meditations and information for the actual purpose of breaking down for the people the delusions of our thinking and our belief systems and our self-talk and our self-belief systems, of actually exposing those in a way that negates those. So in other words, to unlearn what they've learned, not to teach them something more. My aim is not to teach people more. They don't need me to teach them anything. They simply need the help to get untaught of all the blockages and all the lies and all the confusion that make up their psyche, their belief systems, and are causing them the trouble they're having, and then give them a way to start dissolving the effects of those belief systems, not just at a mental level, but how it's less them feeling as a person, because it's what it does. Deep beliefs, if you can talk about yourself as being a useless piece of shit, and at first you might not take much notice of that, but if you keep that going, eventually that just becomes an attitude, and that attitude lives inside of you, and you feel like that, and you can't break free of that. So that has to be resolved at that level, is my point. And that's what I'm helping people do, not just resolve it through a deeper understanding of all these things that we need to understand, but resolve it as it exists already as an effect inside our own bodies, so that we can actually find freedom from these. And what starts to happen is our own nature, our own natural intelligence that we were born with is unleashed. And we discover that we can actually respond to life with an incredible understanding that comes out of nowhere that we call genius, which is actually just the natural condition of any human being that hasn't been suppressed and taught to think stupid shit about themselves and about the world. So it's a process of negation rather than a process of learning. This app, it actually helped break them down, which eventually, if they take it far enough and serious enough, they'll get to a point where they'll be running on their own. And that certainly the dislike and the depressions that they have because of not liking themselves because they've been taught not to like themselves.
Yeah.
This starts to break away. And when that sensitivity and natural intelligence returns, I'll give an example of that. The natural intelligence is the sensitivity and intelligence are basically one and the same thing. And that natural sensitivity of the human being will immediately go on alert whenever anybody is trying to influence them, lie to them, manipulate them, or harm them in any way.
Yeah.
And they will have that sensitivity to protect themselves.
Yes.
And stop that shit from happening to them. And that is why I created the app. Also because I want people to really know what meditation is, because I've watched people all over the world doing all these, traditional meditations and struggling with such difficulty because the traditions themselves are embedded in the meditation techniques to impose a whole nother level of mind control on the world, which doesn't need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather they didn't use techniques that are based in religion or tradition, because they won't understand the damage they're doing to themselves by using these ways of imposing beliefs and ideas into people.
Yeah.
We don't need any ideas or beliefs. We just need our own natural sensitivity. Well, that's what I've found. That's what I have to share. And it's just the way I'm seeing life and have seen life for the last 35 years or 45 years or something.
That's brilliant.
But I am sharing it, and I'm not meaning to sound like shoving it down people's throat. I don't think I am, because I'm not coming from there. But Jesus, guys, everybody needs to get back in touch with themselves as they really are in order to deal with the influences that are coming at them and to even know that they're under influence.
Yes.
Yeah. And this means you can navigate awful situations in life, awful situations, and come out of them in pretty damn good shape. So
fantastic.
There we go. That's enough on that one, I think.
That's fantastic. And if you'd like to take advantage of the Undo app, there'll be a link in the description of this podcast. You can sign up for free. And if you decide, like I recommend you do, go for the annual plan, there's a discount code that Matthew's kindly given me that you can take advantage of, and that'll be in the show notes as well. I have another question for you.
Yeah, great. I'm loving this.
What message would you want people to get from listening to this podcast?
It's a very difficult message to communicate, but I'm going to try.
Thank you.
You see, and I would ask you, try not to take this as my personal agenda, because I don't have an agenda. It's not an opinion. This is absolutely clear to me. And that is that everything you've been taught to improve yourself, everything you've been told that is missing or wrong, and everything you've been told you can do to improve yourself is a lie. Not an intentional lie. You see, when a person is conditioned, they will teach their conditioning to the next person because they think it's benefited them, and unintentionally teach someone something that will ultimately harm them. And the level of harm I'm talking about is subtle, yeah? And that is that there is nothing you can do to achieve a better you. Everything you do is compounding the belief and the experience in you not being whole and good enough as you are. And when you drop everything you're doing, every attitude that you have to try and improve on what you are, and give in to what you are, Just give in to everything that you are. But give into it as a body. Feel how it feels in you when you just give up on trying to improve yourself, and feel what that puts you in touch with. At first, there will be some pain in that because you've caused that pain through everything you've been doing. Stop doing that and get out of your own way and let what happens happen. Then something can happen. You see, what I'm trying to say is when you stop trying to do something, then something can happen of its own volition. Then the natural person you are born to be can start to come back to life inside of you if you just leave yourself alone. In the point of view of stop trying to be a better you. Be the person you are for now. Let yourself be that way. But be that way internally. Feel how it feels like to be you. You don't necessarily have to act it out and harm others. But if you do, well, that may happen. But at least stay with the driving force of where it's coming from inside of you. Don't try and fix it. Just give up on everything you're doing and use this. I want to use the word meditation. Be with yourself physically still, and let what's going on in your body keep going on. And trust this body. It is a highly intelligent creature. This body has been surviving for millions of years. Our thought processes and our ideas are infantile nonsense compared to the intelligence of this body. Our thinking is not important when it comes to understanding ourselves and being our true self. Only our feeling, sensation is relevant. The feeling of me, the sensation of me is how I know me. Would you like me to take this into a meditation?
I was going to say that would be a really, really nice thing if you could, because that dovetails beautifully with what you just said. And that was lovely. Thank you.
Through this natural approach to meditation. And of course, this is only touching on it. There's a lot for you to be discovering in your own experience with this meditation. But in the next 10 minutes or so, just follow what I'm saying and give this a chance to happen within you. And it will. So if you can find a comfortable position to sit in, and just sit as still as you possibly can. Not in a rigid or tight sense, but in a relaxed but quiet and still way. All you're doing right now is just sitting still. Just sitting still. Generally in life you're thinking a lot, and in that thinking you don't actually notice what feelings or sensations are happening inside your body. Now, I don't want you to concentrate on or think about any sensations in your body. I just want you to be physically still and just wait. Wait for a while. Gradually noticing, just sitting still, what you begin to notice as sensations in different parts of your body. You don't have to look for these sensations. Just sitting still, feeling your body, just feeling all of your body or any part of your body. You will begin to notice the feelings, for example, of your backside pressing into the cushion becomes stronger and more obvious to you. or the feeling of the temperature on your skin becomes stronger and more obvious to you. Or if you're feeling any discomfort or pain anywhere in your body, just sitting still, these too become more obvious to you. The reason these feelings become more obvious to you just by sitting still and feeling your body is because your thinking is naturally slowing down and dropping into the background. And you're naturally going deeper beneath all that thinking on the surface, being drawn by the physical sensations that you can't ignore in your body. Wherever you feel those physical sensations the most will draw your attention the most. Just let yourself feel those. Don't concern yourself with your thinking at all, and don't concern yourself with trying to change the way you feel. You are simply discovering the way you already do feel, and by sitting still, giving yourself a chance and your body a chance to begin feeling again. At first, for a lot of you, feeling in the body is actually quite unfamiliar. And this is because you think all of the time. But right now, when you're meditating, thinking has nothing to do with it. What you think simply doesn't matter. What matters now is what feelings and sensations are occurring within your body. Even hearing the sound of my voice, you hear that and feel that vibration of my voice in your eardrums. This is how we hear. So as you're listening to my voice, have your attention right inside your ears. Notice what it feels like to listen. Just listening and letting the sound of my voice or any other sounds around you vibrate in your ears. Just listening. You don't need to think about what you're listening to. You are just feeling the action of listening, right where it happens, inside your ears. And now, notice how it feels on your skin. Whatever feelings are occurring on your skin, feeling the temperature or the pressure on your skin from where you sit, just feel that as it is without trying to change it. Now just continue doing nothing at all other than sitting still and getting used to only feeling the sensations, the feelings of your body. You cannot not feel your body because you are alive. You will feel. And every part of you is alive, and therefore in a state of feeling, in a state of physical feelings and sensations. And there is no way you can stop these feelings or physical sensations so long as you are alive. You are not making them happen. They happen naturally because you are alive. And feeling these sensations throughout your body is feeling the life of you operating within you, all through you. So whenever you meditate, just sit for a while, not trying to make anything happen. And the longer you sit still, the more you will begin to feel the sensations and the feelings that are within you all throughout your body. Just feeling these will ground you back into your body, into the sensations that drive you and the feelings that control you throughout the day. Feeling these sensations, feeling your own physical feelings, is feeling your own presence, just as it is, not trying to make anything of it, and not trying to change it in any way. Just give yourself a chance to begin feeling again.
That whole interview was just stellar. Thank you so very much.
Oh, really? Good.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I thought we went well.